Hi, I'm Bonnie Rose,
Hi, I'm Stephen S. Miller, aka Mama Rose.
and we're here talking with the roses.
With our guests, James Kicklighter and Lucia Lucas. Welcome to the show, James and Lucia.
Thanks
Hi.
for having us. We're excited to be here.
We're thrilled to have you both. Welcome, 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 and hello, hello, hello. Um, James and Lucia, we're thrilled to have you here today. We really, really are. And James, you directed the documentary, The Sound of Identity, profiling the international opera star Lucia Lucas. I'm bravo. The performance in Don Giovanni at the Tulsa Opera. Tell us, both of you, one at a time, how that came about. James, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, Lucia definitely was with it longer, but I'll tell you where I came in. In about February of 2019, I got a phone call from the producers of the film asking if I would be interested in directing what would become The Sound of Identity. And I told them, I'm honored that you would think of me, but I know nothing about opera and you should call someone else. And after I said no 2 or 3 times, they kept calling and they said, we really think you should think about this because you don't know much about opera, which means you might bring a different eye to it. You might look at it in a different way, think about it in a more curious fashion, and think about things that some other directors may not. And so I said, okay, I'll think about this some more, but I need to talk to Lucia. And as soon as I spoke to Lucia, I said, I'm going to do this. I have to do this. And then Lucia, she just has so much talent. And I felt that profiling that moment where she was going to be stepping into a much broader spotlight than what she had been in before was just a really unique opportunity for me as a director because she was so established in Europe, even though she lived in the United States growing up. And Lucia, it seems like a good place for you to tell us about how you got involved.
Sure. I went to school in Sacramento, California, did a master's and artist diploma in Chicago for 4 years. And then in 2009, I went to Germany. And I had not come back to perform ever. I had done some auditions back in the States, but I hadn't yet been invited. And actually, Tobias Picker, this composer at the time, that was his title to me. He said, "I'm interested in trans talent for a new piece that I'm writing." And he said, "I'd love to hear you." So I went to New York and I sang for him. And he said, "Well, this piece isn't going to be ready for a while, but do you have any interest in doing Giovanni? Because I'm also artistic director at Tulsa." And so he gave me what turned out to be my American main stage debut. So I had trained there, I had done young artist programs, but I was never a main stage professional artist in the States, despite having sung for 10 years in Europe at many different places. So yeah, that's kind of how it came about. And we will be doing this piece that he is writing for me. It is The Danish Girl, and it's going to open in Europe in a couple years, and hopefully it'll eventually come to the States as well.
Oh, we hope so. We absolutely hope so.
It has to. I mean, especially after Lucia spent all this time working in Europe and comes to work in the United States, then the pandemic hits. She's got to come back, obviously.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which, James, you're a multi-award-winning producer, film director. You're living or residing in LA. You grew up in Belleville, Georgia. Who inspired you in your career, and who still inspires you? And then will we go to Lucia after that and ask her that question?
I've always been inspired by Sidney Lumet and Jonathan Demme. They're two directors that I've really, really loved. Sidney Lumet specifically for two reasons. One, he wrote one of my favorite books of all time, which is actually sitting right there on the shelf, Making Movies. It's the handbook for anyone who wants to be a director, I think. He worked in early television and understood how to use lenses, because he would always have to shift them quickly in early television. So he could tell you, a 35 millimeter shot, et cetera, et cetera. And he was able to move quickly once he got into directing, because he had this knowledge of swapping out lenses very quickly when he was in early TV. And obviously did some of the greatest films of all time, for example, Network, which is my favorite film. He had this really interesting intersection of dialogue and performance that I really, really loved, coupled with a mastery of technical skill. Same thing for Jonathan Demme. He worked between making films and documentaries, which is something that I aspire to continue doing, fingers crossed. And he did that throughout his career, doing these lovely character-driven films, that everything from The Silence of the Lambs to intimate films like Rachel Goes to the Wedding, Gets Married, Rachel Gets Married. I'm getting the title wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. It's with Anne Hathaway. Very good.
Actually wrote it.
Yes. Oh, really? That's
yes,
fabulous.
And not just the 2 cents here, but that's who discovered me, is Sidney Lumet, and I worked with him for 10 years on numerous projects and feature films. So of all people, for you to say that he's my shining star in my life.
He is for me too. So I'm thrilled to hear that you had the opportunity to work. I wish I could have picked his brain in real life, but I read his book. I'll have to pick yours instead.
Absolutely. Would love to anytime. Lucia, so you are hailed as one of the most powerful and beautiful baritone voices. You have performed all over the world. Who has inspired you, and who still inspires you? And you are an inspiration to many others as you have moved through.
I'm just a person. I'm just a person trying to do my best and be positive. There's a few different singers that really inspire me, and George London had just an amazing voice. But I think when I look for inspiration now, I look to film for acting inspiration, and too many people to name, but I'm very inspired by series in Netflix and Amazon and Apple Plus and all the different things, because I don't want to lose the theater. I don't want to lose the acting, despite being an opera. And opera is quickly becoming two mediums at the same time, because you have streaming, and then hopefully eventually we have in-person audience. And so I want to act for the back row, of course, if there's 4,000 people, but I also want to act as if somebody's right there in my face if I'm on the big screen.
Oh, absolutely. And I was so enthralled with this movie from so many different angles, specifically the opera, but also the direction. And the direction was phenomenal. But your story was so inspirational. And growing up myself, I studied at the Metropolitan Opera in the children's chorus with Elena Dore and performed on the main stage for 3 major productions. So seeing what you went through, in the operatic side of things, and the direction and everything, it was so inspiring to me to hear your story, among other portions of the story. But what advice would each of you give to someone who's just starting out? Lucia, let's start with you.
Be the best. Look at other people who are better than you. Find out those attributes. Always look in the mirror, literally, figuratively. Try out gestures. Make sure that you are the best, because if you are the best, that can trump anything going on in your personal identity.
And James?
I think for me, I'll actually use a quote from the film that Lucia gave that is one of the best pieces of advice I've heard in a long time, which is, if you're making great work, but it's in your living room just for yourself, you're not going to have a career. I think that's very true. I think that what you've got to do if you want to work in film is that you've got to just make them. The nice thing about living today is you've got these lovely little phones in which you can just shoot things, you can edit things, you can buy software or rent software much cheaply than what it was when I was first starting out. I had to save money doing high school graduation videos and wedding videos to pay for my early work. And then you just make it. And the more that you make it and then show it to people outside of your living room, you're going to get feedback. Some of it will be good, some of it will be bad. Hear that, process it, and do it again until your work gets better and better and better. That's the great thing about living today, that everybody has the ability to work in film if they're only willing to put in the work and to spend the time making your work better.
So as I said, Bonnie and I have both seen the film and highly recommend it. The story is phenomenal. And as you just quoted from the film, there are so many incredible quotes that Lucia said. Now I have to ask, when and where can everybody see the film? And is there anything else that you'd like to talk to us about?
Well, you'll be able to see the film in the United States and Canada everywhere on June 1st. It will be available streaming. It will be available for purchase and for rent. You can find more about that on the internet. Just type in The Sound of Identity and you'll find all the information you need. We're really excited to share it with audiences in the United States and Canada, but we're also going to be coming overseas. I cannot tell you where yet, but we are going to be in territories all over the world, and I'm really excited to share it with audiences there later this year.
Perfect. We're so excited, and as I have said, inspiring film, inspiring people, and I thank you. Thank you. You're both inspirations.
We want to thank you so much, both of you, for coming with us today on this journey. Lucia Lucas, James Kicklighter, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. It was such a pleasure.
You have been Talking with the Roses.
See you next time.